With me being an American football fan, in other words, me being a U.S. soccer fan, one thing I've noticed about the USA soccer team, aka the US football team, is just the simple fact that do we have a shot at this year's World Cup realistically, looking at our group stage with, England, Iran, and Wales? Because obviously the biggest question I have is, will Berhalter still be in charge of the U.S. Soccer team at the time the World Cup kicks off? Because at the time of me recording this video now, when I look at Berhalter, obviously a lot of USA soccer fans have been calling for him to be fired and or sacked. In other words, just because obviously we haven't really been able to produce a very consistent run, I feel like, of wins with Gibraltar against really good teams. Because obviously, whenever the USA does get wins, it's mostly against teams that obviously are not really good. And when it comes to the US football team playing actual good teams, then that's where the US football team really crumbles, I think. And I think a lot of this has to do with Berhalter's tactics, because if I'm being honest here, I am one of those USA soccer fans that does believe that Berhalter, I think, should be fired, and so that we get somebody else that actually knows how to utilize this USA squad. Because obviously, with the USA soccer team, I remember how 10 years ago we were a really good team, with Donovan, with Dempsey, prime Donovan, prime Dempsey, prime Tim Howard. Like, we had an actual good squad, especially looking back at our 2009 Confederations Cup and our 2010 run at the World Cup. I think that those were the golden years of U.S. soccer. I guess maybe from 2002 all the way up until 2010, that was the golden age, I feel like, of U.S. football, aka U.S. soccer. And now that I feel like that in the last decade, the USA football team has really fallen off. We're no longer that competitive team that we used to be under Donovan and Dempsey, especially, and Howard. So the biggest question I'm wondering right now is, what plans does Gibraltar have for how to go about the games that USA will be playing at the World Cup in Qatar? Because here's the thing, man, especially when it comes to playing against England, I'm going to be real. I feel like we could get battered by England if Gibraltar doesn't get his tactics right. Because, I mean, if you think about it now, looking at our 2-0 loss to Japan in the international friendly, one thing I've noticed about Japan's football team is they were able to easily break down the United States, particularly Berhalter's tactics, the U.S. tactics. In other words, our football teams, the way how we play football. I feel like that Japan was able to easily break down and just read the exact type of where we were going to pass the ball and all that stuff. Because I feel like this could be an issue for the U.S. heading into the World Cup, because especially you look at the teams that we are facing, obviously Iran and Wales, they still are very competitive teams that could definitely give the United States a run if Berhalter doesn't figure out his tactics right. And me personally, I do think it would be smart for the U.S. Football Federation to fire Berhalter and get us an actual manager that knows how to utilize the squad of players that we got. Because you look at our current players, obviously a lot of our players are very young, and I think that the best player on the squad currently right now, I guess, would have to be Weston McKennie. I am super big on him. I think that Weston McKennie is going to be the player to watch out for the U.S. at the World Cup, because I feel like that if Weston McKennie can continue his form, then I think that's the only realistic way of how I imagine the USA will have a shot at the World Cup. Because if we don't get our tactics right, then I don't think we're going to beat even Iran or Wales, And I'm just keeping it realistic, because I've been following this USA team for, a very extended period of time now, last 10 years from the time. I still remember that 2009 FIFA Confederations Cup final against Brazil, when the USA, and that was the same year that the US also beat prime Spain 2-0 in the FIFA Confederations Cup. So that USA team was very competitive. For us, we were one of the few teams that was actually able to beat prime 2008 and 12 Spain. If you've been following, how good Spain used to be under Vicente Del Bosque. Well, USA, they were able to, I think, end Spain's run of 30 straight games or something like that. So obviously we do have a shot at the World Cup. If I don't know if we really do have a shot, because let's be honest, I mean, our squad, despite the young players that we have, our squad is probably not good enough to compete against the more experienced teams, if I'm being honest here. So Yeah, the way how I see it, I personally think that prior to the World Cup, I think that if we fire Berhalter and we get an actual manager that knows how to utilize the players, then maybe USA has a chance at the 2022 World Cup, if I'm being honest here. But yeah, the way how I've seen us play football, it makes me realize that as long as Berhalter continues to run his same old tactics, then it's not going to get the USA anywhere at the World Cup. And that's just me being honest here. So yeah, my final verdict of this video is that I think it would be wise for us to fire Berhalter and get us an actual manager that just knows how to utilize the players and knows how to tactically, most importantly, utilize the squad. So that's all I got to say.